These are issues that we are hearing repeatedly. So that is why we have brought in some experts today to talk about those topics. We have a question about slides, and I will double check with our speakers, but I'm pretty sure they'd be okay with us sending our slides out, right? Okay, yes, so slides will be sent out. How today is going to work is that we will be doing flash presentations from our two panelists. We have HR Mom and Insperity here, and they'll do flash talks for about 15 minutes each, and then we will move to a panel, and then we will have time for Q&A. So that's a good idea. There's someone in the chat asked about sharing the chat, so we will do that as well. So flash talks, panel, Q&A. For all of you who are here, you just have to raise your hand. Pretty easy. If you are virtual, I would ask that you put your questions in the Q&A. That makes it a lot organized, and we can make sure that we get to all of your questions. So even if you want to start typing in the Q&A now, that's fine. We'll get to them at a little bit of a later time after the presentation. All right. So first, I'm going to introduce and get the slides ready for Corinne Green from HR Mom. And I think I'll have you, which would you prefer? Would you rather come up here and control your slides yourself, or would you like me to do it? You can come on up. So just use the arrows here.
Oh, no, you're gonna have to do that.
It's just this one. It's just this one. The only thing you have to look at, is here. That's you. And I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. You did a mirror.
Yes.
No worries.
Yes. But if you want me to stay and click through, I totally can.
I'm coming out of academic retirement here. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Corinne Green. I'm the owner and CEO of HR Mom, also known as Human Resources Managers on the Move. We are essentially a one-stop human resources department for small businesses. We cater to Black, minority, and women-owned businesses, but we will support other types of businesses as well. We do everything from recruitment to writing policies. We oversee training and development initiatives for you. We can also help you to start to think about building talent pipeline programs and succession and scaling your business. We are a team of 5. One of our members is actually located at the Philippines, my virtual assistant, who primarily supports us with our marketing and administration needs. And then we have 2 senior HR business partners. One of them is here with us today, Caressa Day, who works primarily day-to-day with our clients and overseeing their project. And then Terry Nguyen, who is our HR assistant. And you'll hear from Terry a little bit later and get to talk to Caressa as well. So hiring and recruitment has always been an issue here in the US, and particularly with small businesses. We know that 99% of small businesses are 99% of businesses are classified as small businesses, and 58% of those business owners report needing support in their recruitment and retention functions. So having a conversation like today will hopefully help you to continue to grow and scale so that you can move from being a small owned business to mid-size and hopefully big size business. So when are you ready to hire? Well, we already know you're ready to hire when the numbers tell you, right? When you're looking at the work that you're doing and how taxing you might be. How many of you are solo entrepreneurs, meaning you're a team of 1? Okay. So when you're a solo entrepreneur, you are marketing, you are recruitment, you are HR, you are sales, you are distribution, you are all things to everyone, Jack and Jill of all trades, right? So how do you know when it's time for a new position? 1, you start to have to think about, how do I scale what my deficits are first? I usually start with, what are the areas that I can use the most help in for what I don't know? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? So you do know what you can do and what you can do well. So if you're good at marketing, and if you're good at sales, if you're good at product development, then you probably don't need another person or another person in that capacity. You might need it in some of the other areas. So one of the things to kind of think about is, when you start to decide what position is most critical, how will you pay this team member, right? A lot of folks are always thinking about grants and where do I find the money, where I find free money. And there are lots and lots of free money. I can talk to you a little bit later about some of the grants we won at HR Mom. But then there's also you have to be really practical and intentional about putting some monies aside for how you will pay this person. So also knowing some of the state and local regulations that allow you to sort of think about how much it will cost to keep a person, to retain a person, and to operate a person, but having some sort of idea in mind. And then after you have that down pat, well, you know which position is critical, what's your budget going to be? What platform will you use? How will I get this person? How many of you are doing recruiting now by word of mouth? You know somebody that knows somebody or somebody refers somebody. Well, there's a number of different recruitment tips that you can use. One, identify your need, be realistic, identify interview process. I'm going to talk a little bit later about those tools and those actual places you can go to find people. We're going to talk a little bit about some local resources here that are low in cost and some resources that are free that might help support you as you grow out some of the different arms of your business. But really diversifying your communication tools as well and diversifying your search outlets. Going beyond a referral from a friend, a nephew coming home from college, going beyond just, hey, I'm going to ask a relative. A lot of times small business owners start with who they know. Hey, mom, hey, cousin, hey, auntie, uncle, can you help me out a little bit? Or you see someone that's good at what they do and you try to barter and say, hey, can you help me out a little bit? But really being intentional about recruitment is really what's going to keep that person working with you. Being intentional about the skill set they bring and filling the deficit and the gap in what you need for your business. So what are some of those outlets that you can use? We talked about personal outlets, those personal referrals, and then your professional network. Coming to events like this, meeting other people, reaching out into their network, you may find someone. Colleges and universities, this is one of the most underestimated resources when it comes to recruitment, because who are at colleges and universities? College students, fresh new talent. They are thinking about new creative ideas, but they're also, all of us have been college students, most of us, or some of you may have been college students, they are poor, right? And they're looking for experience and they're looking for money. So it doesn't matter. They want to be able to use their skills, but they also want to be able to make some money. So colleges and universities have career development centers. Not only are these centers accessible by current college students, but they're also accessible by alums who may be looking to change careers or maybe looking for a new type of job. And as we've seen with COVID, we've seen individuals coming out of the workplace and working for small businesses because they're able to do and have a much more better lifestyle for themselves. And they're able to sort of do some of the things that they really want and they love that maybe they couldn't have done in their traditional work setting. Partner programs. I'm going to talk about two of them in a moment here in Philly, but these are programs that will allow you to utilize a resource at a limited or a subsidized cost that will help support you. These programs are typically run by nonprofit organizations that also typically manage sometimes in seasons. So it may be summer work, it may be seasonal work, they may be temporary work, but they are also able to scale with you long-term over time as you're looking to sort of grow the position out into a full-fledged position. Social media is awesome to search, right? We know everybody's scrolling, they're on their phones, and a lot of times they may be looking for new jobs or they're possibly looking for a new type of work. Social media, I'll say we take that with a grain of salt, right? Because you never know what you're going to get. But there are times when social media can become very effective, especially as it relates to your brand and telling your story. A lot of what happens in small businesses and in retention and hiring is that people want to work for the brand that they support. They want to know about you. What are your values? What are your organization values? What are your business values? What is it like in the workplace? What is it like to work for you? People are not necessarily working right now just for money. They're working for lifestyle benefits. They're working for flexibility. They're working for their passions. They're working for what drives them. So how are you telling your story through social media where you position yourself as an employer of choice? Right. So we talk a little bit about leveraging social media and then obviously job boards. How many of you posted on Indeed? Indeed, free to post, one of my favorite sites to use, but Indeed, Craigslist, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Idealist. Idealist is really geared towards working towards a lot of nonprofit type positions, but all of these different types of boards get you a different caliber of employee. They get you a different type of person, right? When you find someone on a LinkedIn, typically this person is very intentional about their career, more advanced, more educated in some ways, and more experienced. And they're really looking at LinkedIn as a way to make some authentic professional connections. And then when you use something like a Craigslist, these may be individuals that you know that may be in transitioning from job to job, maybe just looking for hourly work, maybe looking for temporary work. So using these type of resources and being intentional about which one of these platforms is best for you, and you know which type of employee you're going to get from that type of platform because they're geared that way. One of my favorites and what we use a lot at HR Mom is ZipRecruiter. And we love the ZipRecruiter platform because this is a spider board posting platform. Unlike some of the other platforms, Indeed, Craigslist, you have to go directly to that site. With a ZipRecruiter, you post a ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds all of these smaller little boards that are geared towards that type of employee. And they may come across your job posting while they were scrolling on Amazon. They may come across your job posting while they were scrolling on social media because ZipRecruiter has sort of spider sent it out to a number of different platforms. So you may not find it on like a big platform like Indeed or Monster or Craigslist or something like that, but you may find it in another little location. So this is diversifying your pool. And then industry specific boards. If you are in restaurant, you're in cosmetology, there are particular job boards that are just specific for folks that want to work in those type of careers. So being open-minded, diversifying your job search will also help you to diversify the pool and the caliber of employee that you might get. Let's talk about some creative recruitment options. A lot of times people are like, it's so hard to find people. I don't know where to look. Well, now we know where to look, but there's some local partnership options here in the greater Philadelphia region. One of my favorite is FillaWorks. FillaWorks is a nonprofit organization that has two different types of programs. One is called the On-the-Job Training Program, and I need to look at my notes here because the name had recently changed. The Incumbent Workers Program. And that program, both of those programs really allow for small business owners to sort of do a trial run with these type of employees. FillaWorks will actually train and give them technical skills experience, give them customer service experience, and all of those different entry-level competencies that one might need. And then they place them in an organization like yours to sort of try out in a role that you may have for individuals. The good thing about it is FillaWorks will actually pay them. So during that time that they're with you for those 13 weeks, they will actually pay the compensation. If they happen to work out and then you want to keep this person on board, then they would transition them to you as an employee to operate. And why is that so helpful? For a couple of reasons. One, you've gotten some labor out of it, but you also have gotten able, 12 weeks is what, 4 months to be able to see a little bit, well, 3 months in a week or so. Be able to see a little bit of the person's skill set and what they're bringing to your organization. And then it allows you some opportunity to actually develop some funds and put some money aside so that you know what the expectation is if you want to continue to keep them on board to continue to pay them. So that's a really nice program that just really allows you to sort of trial based, but also getting compensated, saving some money there to be able to do that. And then the next program is Work Ready. Work Ready is a run through PYN, which is Philadelphia Youth Network. If they are primarily servicing and working with high school students or young adults. So you have to be very careful with using a program like this because all of your child labor regulations would apply. So you just want to make sure that you're operating them safely. They do require background checks and clearances to be able to work with the children. And there's two different options there. They can be virtual or they can be on site. So that's really nice. And they do have the option of you can pay them or they can pay them through PYN. And then internship programs, going back to that colleges, universities, reaching out to different business departments, different business programs, and asking them, do they have interns? 9 times out of 10, you can glean an intern, and an intern will either do it for credit or they can do it for a fee. They can do it for compensation. So I'm going to ask my previous intern, Terry, who started with us, to just talk a little bit about her experience coming here from Temple and then coming to work with HR Mom.
I just recently graduated here from Temple back in May. I was a adult organizational development degree. And prior to that, I was interning with Corinne. Before finishing Temple, I actually had a different major, and my different major was HDCE. In that major, I was required to have an internship for the whole year of my senior year. During that time, a lot of the internships that were placed out on Temple Bulletin were nonprofit internships, and I was not necessarily interested in working in a nonprofit, but working with nonprofits. At the time, I had an HR internship hired with a different company that I found on my own. And when I reached out to my director of program, I told her, I'm interested in HR. I don't see anything that you have. If I can find something, can I give it to you? And she said, yes. If not, she'll work out something out with me. Luckily, I was able to find HR Mom. I actually found them through our director assistant, who happened to stumble upon Corinne Green. I don't remember how Emily met you.
We had a previous relationship.
Yes. So she connected me to Corinne and gave me her contact information. I reached out and I told her about the internship program that I needed to complete for Temple. After that, I had switched my major and I ended up graduating with a different degree. So we talked a little bit and I said, is it okay if we change my internship to a part-time position role? I love the company. I love the work that we do here and I want to just keep going. And so here we are today. We're reaching a year soon in August.
Yeah. So being able to leverage those thank you, Terry, being able to leverage those type of programs, right? And being able to set monies aside to tie to a paid position and scale. And I am hoping to scale Terry by the fall to our full-time recruiter salary-based position. So those are sort of some of the things you sort of need to think about as you think about scalability. A little bit later, my colleague here, co-presenter, is going to talk a little bit about the difference between a W-4, W-9, and some of the benefits and things of that nature for when you're managing a person in the workplace. So just a couple of key takeaways when you're starting to think about recruitment. Be intentional, have a plan, have a strategy. Start early with the recruiting, starting to think about as low entry level, what are the entry level needs and when do I find these people? There are a lot of individuals looking for a job, but there are a lot of organizations looking for individuals. So it is very competitive. Diversify your search. Start to think about different job boards, different approaches, different locations, different places you can go. And then finally, seek help and work with these partnership programs. HR Mom is here to support. Many of our clients are solopreneurs or even under 25 employees. So we definitely are able to do full cycle recruiting. We handle all of that for you and are able to find you talent by looking at some creative approaches, including building you an internship program. You all been sitting for a little while. But one of the other things about recruiting is that we want you to be active. So if you can just stand up for just a second. Those that are on Zoom, if you want to participate, you are more than happy to. Just put your arms out and move it around. As you think about all the different ways you need to kind of diversify your search and your pool and what you're looking for, bring them together just a little bit. Bring them in a little bit more. Just a little bit faster. I thank you all for that lovely standing ovation.
Thank you so much, Corinne. So next we're going to have Michael Timmis, who is a human resource consultant from Insperity. You can come on up.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Timmis. I am a human resource consultant with Insperity. And Insperity is a professional employer organization, and our focus is on helping companies grow so communities prosper. We really focus on HR that makes a difference. And a PEO, professional employer organization, the model really brings a lot of things together for our clients, meaning we take care of payroll, we offer benefits, we also have workers' comp insurance and employee practice liability insurance. We have the whole HR services as one spectrum as well, and that includes learning and performance specialists who help our clients develop and bring skill sets to the next level. We also work with recruiting within our organization and background and screening, to name a few. So it encompasses all these services. Today, what I'm going to spend a little time talking with you about is competitive benefits and compliance issues. So we want to just almost build on what Corinne said. Now that we've got individuals in the organization, what are we doing to keep them in a spot where they're set up for success? And there's also the opportunity that we as an employer are in a good position that we know we're keeping everything in compliance as well. So I want to talk to you and walk you through some traditional benefits and what that looks like so you have an idea, and then we can build on it from there. So scalability, it's a word that Corinne used as well. We look at that with the stuff that we do because there's a lot of great stuff out there, but depending upon the size of an organization and where they are in their maturity level, we may not be at a point where we can incorporate all that, but there's some pieces that we can take and work in as well. So when we look about it in terms of procuring benefits, when we talk about that, that's health insurance, life insurance, short-term disability. There's a couple of different ways that you can go about that. One way, which we may be familiar with, is with the broker, where we go and the individual comes with us and brings us a couple of bids from different health insurance companies, and it gives us an idea of what the cost will be based on the plan design. So there's different plan designs that can be offered as well. From HMOs to PPOs are two examples that you may see. So that's one aspect of it. The other is what we refer to as the model that we just described, which is a PEO, where the benefits piece with Insperity, it's encompassed in with that, but the focus is not on just offering the benefit. It's one of the services that we provide, but it's not sold just as insurance. It's just part of the entire package. And then the last piece we have is what's referred to as an individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. And this is a setup that where organizations can set aside pre-tax dollars to give to employees to pay for benefits through the open market. Some of the ways that this is different is that an employer can structure the reimbursement based on the employee class, family, the size, the employee's age, or they can provide everyone the same amount and they can use that money towards health cost premiums and also out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. So that's another different type of approach for procuring benefits. Now, when we talk about medical, dental, and vision, we obviously have those three components that we see on the surface. But then another thing that's out there that's become very big is health condition management, where we help individuals in the workforce focus on some of the challenges that they may be having. And these are really patient-focused, high-touch intervention points that hopefully help things early on in the process so that they don't spiral out of control. And that works two ways for an employer. Number one, it keeps them in a position to be healthy so that they can perform the essential duties of the job, but it also hopefully mitigates expenses down the road by getting in front of it. Some examples of that may be asthma. Some folks who are dealing with asthma, that may be an issue. Diabetes, which is really a big challenge and concern for a lot of individuals. And then hypertension and cholesterol. All those things can contribute to impacting your health and being in a position to be successful. And if you're not able to focus on your role, then you're also not able to probably take care of yourself and your family too. So that's one aspect of benefits that really puts individuals in a position of feeling comfort if an organization can offer something along those lines. The other thing is we look at the prescription drug costs, and there's different ways that things can be done with that too to help mitigate the expense for the employer. In some instances now, there's some deductibles that have to be met before you go into one of the tiers of the prescription plans. But that's an example of where when you're working with somebody to set your plan up, you can balance it and decide what works best for your organization. Virtual medicine is also something that became very prevalent during the pandemic and very helpful to individuals on multiple fronts because some of these appointments could be made in the course of the day without the individual having to take time off of work. They could probably schedule their lunch, or if they're working remotely, they could do it at home. And then they could get right back to work if need be. So all that time spent commuting and going to the appointment, and perhaps even if things are delayed, that time is brought back to the individual. So that puts them in a position of being able to resolve these sooner and hopefully keeps the stress levels down as well. Then when we look at paid time off, this is another area where a lot of organizations are focusing on, because there's such a big emphasis on keeping people healthy and balanced. So there's a couple of things that I put together for you. I looked at a couple of sources that really track some of this. Forbes being one, the Bureau of Labor Statistics another, and then a company called World at Work. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of where it's trending right now, for 1 year of employment, we're looking at probably 8 to 12 vacation days off. 5 years, somewhere in the range of 12 to 16. And if you have somebody working for you for 10 years, it could be 14 to 17 days of time off. And then on top of that, you may also have 5 sick days. Now, some states and cities are actually have set up paid sick leave regulations where we want to make sure we're in compliance with that. Some of our clients we have found have been using what's referred to as a traditional vacation sick. Others have gone to paid time off where you can lump it all together. The challenge with that sometimes is, depending upon the city or state, especially if you've got people working virtually, is that we have to be conscious to be in compliance with the regulations when we go to those other states. So we want to keep that in mind as well. Another thing, depending upon the size of the organization and where you're at in your trajectory, you may be able to offer a 401k plan. But 2 things to keep in mind with that. Some of the employer matches these days, they're in the range of 4 to 6%. From a contribution perspective, what some of the data shows is that on average, it's about 7% that people are contributing towards, out of their paycheck, towards a 401k. And then other programs are short-term disability and life insurance. Some cities and states, there's a handful across the country that actually have short-term disability programs where people contribute through their paychecks. If not, some organizations offer that benefit so people can take advantage of it as well. So benefit trends to consider. Additional leave. We are seeing now where organizations are offering paid family leave in some instances for birth, parental leave, things of that nature. There are some states like New York that have a formal program that they've put together, and it's accelerated over the last few years in terms of what people can receive in terms of paid time off. Earlier this year in the state of Pennsylvania, there was a bill that was introduced for potential paid family leave. It's not been any votes in committees or on the floor yet, but stay tuned because more information will probably be coming down the pike as that progresses through discussions. So the other things that we're seeing, it's for the family bonding, which is the time frame after the birth of a child for both the mother and or the father to spend some quality time with the individual. What we're seeing with our clients, it really varies in terms of what people are contributing. I would say on average, organizations that are offering it are right now, depending upon what they do, a good estimate would be somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, but some organizations that have been around longer may be offering more weeks than that. So it really depends on what fits within the culture and the financial opportunities within the organization to support that. Other things we're seeing is elder care. That's another thing that we've got going on. Sandwich generation, where people are raising children and now they're taking care of parents as well. So the organizations are looking to give some people assistance and help with that too. Something that I saw with one of my clients just the other day that they're offering is parent coaching. So individuals who are experienced, because they're a younger organization, they have people who are becoming parents for the first time. And that's something that they're offering it as well. And then wellness programs, those are big. Sometimes, depending upon the organization, if they have an employee assistance program, they're able to coordinate those things with the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where they can have people do lunch and learns. Also, if you're not able to do that, what I have found is that through local organizations like SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, chapters, there's folks who you often come into those groups free of charge that will do a presentation and share that information and knowledge, because it's an opportunity for them to then make deeper connections, either working directly with the company or one-on-one with some of their employees. And then beyond that, we've got a couple of other things that we see happening in the wellness space. Again, the focus on mental wellness is so critical. It's happened in the past, but now we believe it's here to stay. It's not something that the C-suite is just going to look at and say, this is something that's a passing trend. The benefits are there to make the investment to keep people healthy. In that same vein, though, another thing that we are looking at and seeing is financial assistance. And that's really training people to better understand how to manage their money. And I actually said it was a SHRM panel discussion a couple of years ago, where some organizations invested heavily in that, where they were teaching people how to budget and manage their money. And what the data showed from them was that people were not picking up and leaving to go to work for a competitor across town for a nominal amount of money, because they were realizing that they were being taught how to manage their money. It was putting them in better positions to be eligible for lower auto loans and perhaps even managing their credit card debt, which could put them in a better position for a mortgage. Those sort of things go a long way in building trust with individuals, and they know that the culture in those companies are where they really want to spend their time. Something that's trending is called emergency savings plans. And what this particular plan does is that for those people who may not be able to invest into a 401k because they say, you know what, I don't necessarily sure I can have that money tied up for the next 30 or 40 years, but they want to do something. So some organizations have been setting up these emergency savings plans where individuals perhaps might have $20 a week that they put into it. And it's similar to a flex spending plan, but with not as many limitations. So if for argument's sake, somebody has an unexpected medical expense, they could tap into it for that. If for some reason they realize that they have to unexpectedly replace the tires on their car, they could do that as well. They're finding that people are not taking this money to buy an outfit to go to a wedding or a social event. They're really leaving in it, and one of the benefits of it is it's portable, so they can take it with them. But organizations are doing something as simple as, if you put $20 in, we'll match it with $2.50. So with currently maybe putting in a bank account where you wouldn't get any sort of interest, now you're getting 12 to 12.5% on a $20 investment. And that goodwill by the employer has gone a long way. It's a program that's actually been advocated by Susie Orman too. So it's got some name recognition as well. We talked about the EAP. Some other benefits that I just want to point out that are out there: educational assistant. It's estimated that probably in the next 5 years or so, 50% of our skills are going to have to be retrained. So if organizations are offering tuition assistance, or not even that, just the ability to go and attend a day conference or a webinar, and whether they do it virtually or in person, that goes a long way with showing you're making an investment in people. Pet insurance during the pandemic came up too as something that's big. A lot of people went out and adopted pets. Now they're finding a couple of years into it that there's an expense to maintain and keep them healthy. Personal story, my brother has a yellow labs, about 7 or 8 years old. She tore her ACL. They had to wait 2.5 months. It happened in April. Actually, they had to wait longer than that, to August, to have the surgery done. And that was about $4,000 that they had to pay just to have the ACL repaired. So insurance is helpful there. Company vehicles, in some instances, organizations buy the vehicles and let the employees use it. That's something that's also potentially trending out there. And again, let's remember scalability. We want to think about how that works with our organizations. Wellness days, where we may just give somebody the opportunity to take a day off. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go to a spa day, which is a little bit different, but just give them that opportunity to really focus and and clean up perhaps some things in their house or their mind, something along those lines. And then obviously gym days too. That's something else to consider. Some hybrid work statistics, just real high level, just to give you an understanding of what's going on. 70% of US companies are using or plan to implement a permanent hybrid work model. And it's out there. It's critical. People want to take advantage of it. 44% of US employees prefer a hybrid model versus 51% of employers. That data is a little bit consistent with a Gallup poll that showed about 53% of US employees want that hybrid work. And then the other data here speaks for itself. But I think the point, the last one is that 59% of employees are more likely to choose an employer offering remote work. So when we think about the employee experience and what we're doing, we really have to give some consideration how it's playing itself out. And the time that people do come to the office, we have to make it an experience. They're coming in to do something different that they wouldn't necessarily be doing at home. And that time together has to be quality time, thinking about how they can drive themselves forward, but how it's connected to move the business forward. And I think we'll see trends like that. Obviously, we've heard the stories from Morgan Stanley and Yahoo, where they've been calling people back into the office. I think it's going to be like a little bit of a dance, is pivoting and augmenting depending upon the success of an organization. And as we scale it down to employers of your size, we have to give some consideration to that as well. And then how do we keep on top of all this? Well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, Corinne mentioned recruiting aspect of it. One of the big things with recruiters, especially if people are turning down our offers, is for the recruiters to ask those questions to see what is it about the total rewards package, not just the pay, that could be impacting them as to why that they didn't go. Exit interviews when people leave. Sometimes it's pulse surveys. If it's a small organization, it could be a town hall discussion. If you have enough where you want people to do it anonymously, you can come up with a Survey Monkey tool or something like that. And then the other one, which is actually starts the list, is climate surveys, which is a full-blown survey where there's some benefits questions. So I want to talk a little about compliance issues. State sick policies, we talked about that already. We want to make sure that we're in compliance because the carryover regulations are not all the same when we go out of state. The other thing which I've found on a couple of occasions with clients that I serve, somebody may have had them set up in the system where they're working in one state, and then we find out they moved to another state and we're not in compliance with getting their sick regulations, and it's entirely different than what they may have been under. And then the same thing for state and local tax filings, because if an employee moves there, then the employer, if that's where they're paying them from, they have to have it established there that they're paying taxes into that too. Employee handbooks, they're great to keep an organization in compliance, but we really have to stay on top of them every year to review them, to make sure the information in it has not gone stale or is outdated. So we want to keep in mind that as well. COBRA administration with the benefits. Sometimes employers take that on and operate it themselves. We have to make sure we're careful to get those letters out in a timely fashion. Not only the letter that goes when an individual ends working with somebody, which is within the first 14 days, but also when you hire them, you have to give them a notification to let them know that they would receive COBRA if at any point they left the insurance. And then multi-state employers, there's a lot of complexities with that we want to stay on top of as well. In addition to what we just mentioned earlier, you want to make sure if people are moving around that they're just there for a short period of time. Beyond multi-state employer, we had an employee of ours find out that somebody left the country and was working in another country, and their health insurance benefits wouldn't have been active there. So that creates some challenges too. So the best thing to do is to have a subject matter expert and SME to support you with that, because you really want to focus on the business. And then the last piece, I just want to spend a little time talking about independent contractors versus an employee. So a couple of things here. This can be confusing for individuals. Behavioral control of work. If you have somebody working for you that you're giving a lot of instructions to on how to go about and work with the business, once you start giving that direction, that line of a 1099 employee begins to be blurred, and there's not as much autonomy there. And that could include how, when, and where to work. If you're giving them equipment like a laptop or anything like that, those are some of the things that the IRS is going to look at and say, that's not really an independent contractor. If you're telling them who they have to hire, even if it's just, hey, we work with this agency and there's 3 people there who we've worked with in the past, we want you to hire those 3 people. That blurs the line of control of being independent. And then purchasing supplies and any training provided on how to complete work. So if you hire somebody and you're training them on how to do stuff specifically, that's not really independent in the eyes of the government. So we have to be careful about that. Financial control is a significant investment on the independent contractor. How are the expenses being handled? Like if you're reimbursing them for expenses, that blurs the line. And is there a true profit and loss opportunity? And then if you begin to offer any benefits, this was the big issue that kind of kicked all this off with Microsoft at the early 2000s, where they had people working for them, but then they had independent contractors who were doing the exact same work. The only difference was they weren't giving them any of the benefits. So that was an issue there. So any of those things. And then when you're on a W employee, you're paying your own taxes if you're an independent contractor. If it's coming out of a paycheck and you're getting a W-2 at the end of the year, that's another way the organization is going to look at it and say that you're not really an independent contractor, because when that's happening, the employer is also making contributions for Social Security and Medicare and unemployment taxes as well. So just summary of all this, if the business may be required to give you a Form 1099 at the end, even though they're giving you that form, if they're doing any of the things that we outlined there, the lines may be blurred. So in summary, scalability and everything that I've talked about, we want to look at how that works and make sure that if anything you've heard today, you can take it and scale it down and take a piece of it. If it helps your organization do a 1 millimeter shift, that's great. Competitive benefits, keeping in mind the employee insights, and then establishing best practices to make sure that you're compliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, everybody, we are going to take a 5-minute break before we get into our panel questions. And so for everybody who is here live, please enjoy some food in the back. And let's see, what's 5 minutes from now? I don't have a. Okay, so whatever is 5 minutes from now, we will meet you back here. All right, we are coming back for our panel.
Where's the camera? Where do we look? Oh, we look there? Okay. And you're gonna, questions in the chat?
Yeah, so kind of like all of us.
We
are
look
in
there for the
frame.
camera for the Zoom. You wanna move over?
All right, can you still hear me okay, virtual,
Right.
our virtual attendees? Great.
No, thank you. It looks good. It looks good.
All ready to go?
I'm ready, I'm sorry.
Okey-dokey. All right, everybody in the back, grab your food. We're gonna start with our panel questions and then we'll open it to the audience.
Yeah.
So I hope that everybody enjoyed those presentations. There's a lot of information shared and, this is a really big topic. We will be sharing the slides and we will also share the chat box since there's a lot of activity in the chat, which is awesome to see that. So the first question for the panel is a scary one. Let's start. What are the consequences for small businesses of not prioritizing HR? And we'll give it to Corinne first.
Oh, wow, it is a scary one, but it's exciting because you're going to get some information here tonight. The consequences obviously are very vast. They can run from fines and sort of any type of monetary fines of things you need to pay. It's important to sort of think about compliance when you start to recruit, because one of the biggest things we're seeing now, especially in small businesses, is the difference between the W-4 and the W-9 employee that Michael talked a little bit about. And I can honestly say, if you follow us on social media, you'll see that HR Mom just went through an audit. We got cherry picked, obviously, from the Department of Labor and Unemployment Compensation. And they really looked at all of our records as far back as 5 years, really wanting to see the scope of works from the contractors, wanting to see the taxes we paid for W-4 employees, wanting to see if the contractors had insurance, wanting to see what type of work they were doing. Again, it's not about paying those actual, how you want to pay them, but how you're using them and how you're working with them. So that is HR compliance is something you should really keep in mind and be on top of, because they are really looking at how small businesses are operating now.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take it from a little bit of a different perspective. I think everything that Corinne said is critical in terms of the compliance. The other piece that I look at it from is how it impacts employee engagement. If we look at what goes on within the organizations, the Gallup numbers that track this are still hovering in like the low 34, 32 percentile for employee engagement. And a lot of the stuff, when we look at that, comes back to the amount of investment that's made in developing leaders.
So what does that mean? 30.
So 34% of the workforce is actively engaged in what they do at work. So
Actively engaged.
yeah, so by not making that investment in developing people and keeping a finger on the pulse, only 34% of your people are showing up to work. That means you've got a percentage that are just somewhat neutral, not actively engaged or not disengaged. The remaining are actively disengaged, and we always have to be concerned that an actively disengaged is going to pull down that group that's in the middle. There's a piece of data that's out there from about 2012 or so, Harvard Business Review. Most people are in leadership roles for about 10 years before they get any formal training to be a leader. And that's scary that people are doing that. So when we don't invest in developing our leaders, it impacts that engagement number, which can impact the success of an organization and the bottom line from a revenue perspective.
Thank you. Those are all very good points. What would be some tips from both of you on crafting a good job description? And I think I heard, I remember hearing from Corinne a few months ago, and she really blew my mind.
Some tips for crafting a great job description. Well, one, start to think a little bit about the task, be very task focused, not granular in terms of what they're going to do day to day, but really how are you adding some specificity from one job description than another? Does these job descriptions have similarities? Are they crossing over? And then really look at the compliance issue, going back to that compliance piece again. Are we, what are the qualifications you're asking for? Who's this person going to report to? How are you classifying this role? What is their compensation? All those different pieces. And then really starting to think about the skill set that that person actually needs. What are the competencies they actually need? And we have a couple of tools, and there are some tools online where you can look at to see job description samples, as well as what are some of the competencies needed for different types of roles.
Yeah, to build on that, I think one of the things that you can do is look at the people who were successful in the role, if they had it, or if somebody you are creating this role from that you know of from a previous life that you were in. Not necessarily the person, but the behaviors that they exhibited, and work them into your job description. That's one piece. The other piece that I would say is competencies are so critical. The job description is a gateway for so many different things. One of them being it helps with the recruiting process, although, and I'm not a big advocate of doing postings where we're just taking bullets from the job description and putting it out there, because you really need to have a marketing impact on how you post a position. But it does help with that in setting the expectation when somebody comes on board. Those competencies that get selected, they're also great to move into the performance management system. So now that you can begin to track and see what the trends are, if you're rating people on them, and that'll help you understand where the gaps could be in the organization as well. And then, so it's that, and then also employee counseling. It's great to have that piece for it. Not that we want to build files where we're doing checkbox HR, where we've got 2 write-ups and now we're sending them out the door. But if anything, we can use that to help retrain the individual who we brought into the organization to be successful, and then perhaps even get them some training in the middle of it to bridge that gap so they're set up for success.
Thank you. And I think I remember what Corinne had said something about thinking about, we do marketing, right? And we think about our clients and we think about marketing in that way and attracting new clients, but thinking about the way that you phrase the job description with a marketing lens was a little bit new for me, and I really appreciated that. So things could be like, are you the type of person who fill in the blank? And then that can really help paint a picture for your potential applicants, or, oh yeah, that is me. So that was really helpful for me to hear that. Okay, so we want to get down to the nitty-gritty about hiring an HR professional. With a lot of the educational training that we do at the SBDC, we're not trying to necessarily show you how to DIY, although in some cases you do have to do that when you're really small, but we want to help empower you to work with a professional and know the questions to ask, and make sure that you're hiring someone that you can trust. And also just what could that look like for your budget? So how can a small business work with an HR professional?
Oh, all right. So lots of ways to work with an HR professional. First of all, find one that mimics your style, that you're going to be able to communicate with, that you're going to be able to understand. Find someone or organization that is competent and has been doing it for quite some time. Because what we're finding in the HR world is that people are doing what they've seen done, and they think that that's right because they've seen it done over and over again, and they may not actually be compliant. Working with the organization like HR Mom, with us, you get our team. So it's not just one person. You're going to get recruitment, you're going to get policy right, and you're going to get support with building your performance management plan and technology systems and process and payroll systems that you need to put in place. And be realistic about that relationship. Start to think about a budget. Again, same thing with the recruitment. It is a industry that requires you to make it a priority, right? We've made a lot of things in our business a priority with marketing and things like that, but HR is really as important, because this is what's going to sustain your organization and sustain your team and kind of keep you going to what we say HR Mom, survive, thrive, and leave a legacy, right? So I think that it's important to sort of think about that relationship and make sure that it can be an open, honest, authentic one that reflects your organization.
Yeah, I think Corinne points out some great things. I also would think, what exactly are you looking to accomplish from an HR perspective? Are you looking to go at a specialty like compensation? Are you going to need somebody who really understands compensation? Are you going to be looking for somebody who's going to help with recruitment? Do you have a heavy amount of employee relations issues that are going on?
Yep.
And then also, if you're going to do any training and development, do they have experience in that? And it could just be compliance training, liability management. We often talk about from discrimination, harassment prevention. That's critical for a lot of the clients that we serve in terms of getting people understanding that and through that training. So I think understanding that, I would also ask for some best practices from whoever you're interviewing to see what they've done, where they've been successful, and see if they can show where they moved the company from point A to point B, and if they have any empirical data that'll measure what they've done to show that success. So those things I think are important as well. The model that we have at Insperity, it's because we're encompassed with a lot of the things I mentioned earlier with the insurances and whatnot. It's all different the way when we work with our clients. It's all based on a per person, per day, a dollar amount that gets billed to our clients on a monthly basis. That's how the model in the organization that we work with. Sometimes we do project work for them that we draw up a statement of work, but typically it's the per person, per day for the course of the month to work with us.
Can I add something to that? So it's also very important to sort of think about and understand what HR is for you and your organization. Michael mentioned recruitment and all these different things. Is it compensation? And understanding what HR actually is. It's beyond sometimes just the recruitment and compensation piece. It is that culture piece of your organization. It is developing your identity and positioning yourself as an organization of choice. And as you're thinking about those things, to really, like Michael said, ask those potential partners where they're most successful at. We've seen at HR Mom, we do what I've coined the term as lifestyle recruiting, right? We're not just looking for a warm body to fill a seat, but we want to make sure you understand what it means to work in a small business and that this position fits your lifestyle and what you're looking for. And because of that, we are able to say that on average, our hirees stay on average 18 to 24 months with an employee. So with an employer. So we're not seeing that turnover that small businesses see because we've been so very intentional about the recruitment process. So really being able to see where you are seeing those results at. We are also able to say that when we work with an organization, we have organizations come to us and they say, I have a team of 14 and my payroll is, $300,000 a year. And I say, I can cut that by 10%. How? Well, let's look at how you have folks classified. How are folks working? Do you have more hourly employees? And you should really convert that over to a salary position. And now we're able to look at your payroll over time and really stabilize it and prepare you to have it be comparative to where your sales and your revenue are. So we're able to look at that and say, I'm able to cut your payroll by 10% within the first year working together. So that's something that you really need to think about, that is not just having a person here and getting the work done, but really being strategic in your HR efforts.
Yeah, and just real quickly with that, I think from understanding the business as well, you want somebody who's in an HR role who isn't just asking questions about the HR piece, but they're also thinking how that's connected with the bigger business and your mission, your vision, values, and how all that is connected. One of the things that I talk to the clients I serve about a lot, and this is done at Amazon, whenever they have a meeting, there's an empty chair in the room to represent the customer. So I've started talking with the clients that I have to have two empty chairs in the room, one to represent the customer, the other to represent the employee. Because it's important to think of it from those perspectives.
Yep.
Can I ask, just for some of for some of our attendees who are maybe totally new to this, what could be a range that they maybe could expect when they're thinking about, okay, this sounds important. what Corinne and Michael are saying is awesome. I think it's time that I incorporate an HR professional into my small business. How do I budget for that? What could I expect? What's the range? And I know it's a huge range, obviously, because there's so many services that could be added on, but just to give some perspective, it could be a huge range, huge.
I will tell you to take the little card in front of you, and for those that are online, we'll make sure that you get it. We have a QR code on the back of our cards you have here. You can scan it. One of the links will take you directly to our website in which we actually post our pricing. We work based off of a retainer-based service, and we have 3 pricing plans: the Survive, Thrive, and Legacy plan. And the first plan starts at $9.95 a month, and the largest plan is $31.95 a month. We work based on the number of hours we work for you. So depending on which plan you selected, and the lowest plan allows you to get 8 hours a month in work. The middle plan allows you to get 24 hours. And the third plan allows you to get 40 hours, which is about 10 hours a week, which is about a day and a half of a day or so of work on site or remote with you. So we actually take your project and look at it and determine what your needs are after we have you do an assessment. And we determine if you need to be on which plan for how long, 3, 6, 9, or 12-month increments. So, and then we will sit and talk to you about your budget. A lot of times I sit with potential clients or potential partners, and they're saying to me, I don't have the budget to afford you. And I say, okay, let's look at what you have set aside, and let's look at how we can work together if need be. And then I say, well, let's look at some cost saving strategies that you can already implement. What are you doing in your business? Are there other arms of your business that you're paying that you prioritize, and are you paying them appropriately? And then I may even look at your employees in classification and say, hey, let's start doing a reorg, and let's see if we can free up some money to now support this this new priority need.
Yeah, I would say, because the PEO model is different, I don't think we're comparing apples to apples,
Yep.
but just on the same lines of what Corinne said, it could probably be the same. It could be anywhere from $500, depending upon the type of project. If you were working one-on-one with somebody to do, it could go as high as $10,000 to $15,000, depending upon the depth and the scope of the project.
Appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Oh, can I make an
Oh, yeah.
announcement? So HR Mom was just awarded some monies from the city to assist in recruitment efforts in small businesses. So if we actually just sent out a newsletter about this last night, if you're interested in recruitment and bringing a person on, you should go online, take our HR audit, and then we'll be able to put some monies to help subsidize the cost through your recruitment.
Whoa, that's awesome. That's really cool. So that's what the
It was
city.
perfect timing.
That's what like Commerce Department.
Yep.
I love that they are thinking in that
Yep.
way. That's really great to hear that. Okay, so our last panel question is going to be more of an activity, just a quick one. I thought that it could be useful to think of together as a group, and people online can type in the chat too, about strategies that are low or no cost that relate to employee retention and maintaining a desirable workplace culture. So I know that Michael had mentioned a few of those, and those are already up there on the screen. So let's think outside the box about some other thoughts that you might have, because I think that collective brainstorming could be worth a few minutes of our time today. So anyone have some ideas? Also, does anyone have nice handwriting and want to write on the whiteboard? Because mine is not great. I'll do it, but it's not great. Anyone? Anyone? Yeah?
Hey.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move over here. Can I talk first about this? Because we do a lot of this, especially with negotiating, hiring and things of that nature. I know you may not be in a position to offer a full comprehensive benefit package, but really thinking about what are some of those lifestyle benefits, some of those fringe benefits that folks might be looking for. And I know I've seen this come up a lot, especially with the remote work and working from home, is the technology stipend. So being able to help folks pay a little bit of their Wi-Fi costs or computer costs, and you don't have to pay it every month. You can pay it at the end of the year. You can pay a percentage of their bill. So maybe something like $45 or so towards the cost of technology.
Yeah, I like that. And I think I've heard about kind of is someone with an expertise in ergonomics. So just maybe having kind of like you could do it virtually, right? Someone to talk about how you should be positioned at your desk and making your home office more ergonomic so that you're not hurting your back.
Yep.
Unfortunately, my most comfortable chair in my home is my kitchen stool. I don't know why. It's like I have a desk chair, but my back hurts. Anyway, can you enlarge the screen with you in the whiteboard? I will. I am not sure how to do that to the person who asked virtually, but I can post in the chat what we're mentioning on the screen so that way you can see it.
Oh.
So we're saying tech
I think
size 10. Anyone else?
your
Throw 'em out
idea
there.
of ergonomic, or even some money towards purchasing some equipment,
Yeah.
that might be helpful and supportive.
Any ideas from anyone virtually? I have one about creative staff retreats. So things like, I mean, I've seen, I actually do staff retreats. I won't talk about that, but picnics, people like going to I don't know why people love go to jail, but people like the Eastern State Penitentiary as a staff retreat. That's a really popular one. Sports games, I feel like can be a little bit exclusive if you're not a sports fan, but
Karaoke.
yeah. But I think picnics, and we actually did a hike and that costs nothing. So let's say that. So staff, you could do axe throwing.
Some team building exercises.
Yeah.
The escape the room exercise is amazing. I've used that a lot, particularly with exec training as well. It really helps with communication skills and just really how folks manage their anger and frustration and in a small space and all that, and how people critically think. So I've used that a lot as well.
We have dogs in the office.
Yeah.
That's one.
Sometimes you could also have somebody come in and do armchair massages or something like that. So set them up in a conference room and just let people go in and take advantage of that. And then another one that comes to mind is, especially this time of year, early Friday releases. So even if you only get out an hour and a half, 2 hours early, and even if you're working remotely, it just gives you get a load of wash done before the weekend or something like that.
Good one, because it says that you have a culture of appreciating mental health. So it says a lot into like what you can, just by cutting out 2 hours, it really does make a big statement. Yeah, that's nice.
One of the things we do at HR Mom is we have our half day Fridays, and we've been doing that for the last 6 years. But we also have those on the spot, like just mental, like we know if we had a team member that was managing something that had been going on for a while, you'd be surprised some of the concerns and issues in small businesses. But I'll say, hey, once you do this, log off or take the rest of the day and not really think about it. So there's a lot of flexibility in allowing for that mental.
Yeah. And I'll just add just flexibility generally.
Yeah.
So I know that that's a big benefit to a lot of my team, is being able to work at hours that work with our family lives for getting the work done. And it also just makes it easier to say yes to a weekend or an evening, right? When okay, but this is my choice. I'm doing this because I'm a valued member of the team and I want to work at these times. I'm going to work at night because maybe I can play with my kid a little bit longer the next day. So yeah, flexibility is a big one. And I think that we are seeing in job descriptions more implications of that.
Yeah.
Like a flexible workplace, right? That's going to catch somebody.
Unlimited PTO. And,
That's a tricky one.
it is. It is.
That is a tricky one. I don't know if we want to get into it, but
PTO.
that's a tricky one.
I've done it once.
All right. Any more before we wrap up on this and then move to any
True.
audience questions?
I was just about to say that. Bring your kids to work day. I call it the next generation day, and just kind of see what it's like to be that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I've been in some larger organizations, and there's a lot of challenges to that, especially as it relates to insurance and compliance. So it really takes a lot of time to plan that with, having children on the work site and things of that nature, and getting that cleared through insurance.
Yeah. Another thing to be intentional when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, It's, maybe you may have a day where everybody brings in their favorite dish and you share that. That is such a great way. I've seen it in rooms where you have people together. It
Mhm.
just brings people together, just the curiosity of learning about somebody else's food and culture.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And if
And,
you, if
and
you can offer stipends to pay for the food costs, that could be nice. But if not, I feel like people would probably be willing just to do that anyway because it's fun.
And beyond the culture, I know in HR, we talk a lot about not wanting to, you know, blur the lines with the religious holidays and things of that nature, but really being intentional as an organization about those values that everybody hold in the workplace. So we've been a part of programs where during the Women's Month, Women's History Month, they had all women-owned businesses come and talk a little bit about their experience. And so honoring those type of individuals that are in the workplace and holidays and things like that. Just for information purposes, it would be nice because that promotes an inclusive environment.
I'll also add respecting work anniversaries and special occasions.
Yep.
So if we have people in the office getting married, we'll all chip in.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's, it just kind of shows.
The birthday club, someone said.
Yeah.
And these are all sort of like organizational sort of not necessarily benefits, but all organizational culture type experiences that you can speak to in the interview process, right? You can say, hey, this is what we have. We are really an inclusive office. We're an inclusive space. And some of these things may not add more compensation or money, but it will add to that lifestyle and that experience. And people then want to come to work. They want to work for you. They want to be a part of the organization.
All right, thank you. I want to make sure we have time for audience questions. So thanks for that exercise. I hope it was fun.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this, but we are going to save the chat. There's a lot happening in the chat too. So we're going to save it because it's been requested virtually, and that way everybody who's here doesn't miss out on it. And because there are some ideas and contact information. So we will save it and send it out with our follow-up. Our follow-up will also include a survey. We have just posted that survey in the chat. We have a QR code for the survey for you guys all here to take before you head out. Just that's my housekeeping, but I want to get back into our questions. I'm going to take one virtual question first, and then we'll go to our in-person friends. A sole provider thinking of bringing on a few independent contractors. These would be doulas, which makes sense that they'd be independent contractors. Is it possible for me to do my own HR, at least in the beginning, as I tried to grow the business? Uh-oh. Elaborate.
I'm shaking my head because that's a red flag. I think I would not recommend that you attempt to do your own HR for the first time in a hire, because like I said, there's a lot of compliance around really making sure you classify that person, really making sure you find the right person. It is expensive to recruit. And if you get that person in there and they are not ideal for you and they are not going to be able to perform, it may be a bit of a challenge trying to find someone else. And with a skill set like a doula, it's a very intricate and specific skill set. So you definitely want to make sure that you partner with a professional to find the right person in the right amount of time.
Yeah, and just kind of like the liability.
Yeah, and the liability piece. And then on top of that, as an independent contractor, they should provide their own professional liability insurance. And obviously in a environment like working with a doula, it would almost be very important and critical that they do have some type of insurance and some type of liability insurance since they're going to be practicing. And I can kind of think a little bit about what Michael had talked about earlier about the classification and if they can be a contractor. You know, do you have particular processes that you would like to use? Like, you know, that we have the procedure of the warm towel and blah, 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 blah. And if you're telling them this is what needs to happen in the first hour preparing for labor, this is our way of doing things, then they need to be a W-4 employee.
And would you see in that situation, would that be more ongoing or could that be project-based? Like, I'm starting up, I want to make sure I have all the policies in place. Could that be more of a project, or would you see, you know what I mean? Or would it be like kind of a monthly relationship?
For us, it'll be more of a project. We can kind of steer you through to kind of think about what you should be looking at and what you should do. Since we are full service, we actually do the entire process for you. So you basically say, here's my need and I would like to hire. And we start to think about what is the best payroll platform, how do we classify, how do we recruit, what are the interview questions, where will we find doulas at, are we calling nursing programs, are we contacting hospitals? So we actually then become your full service recruitment arm. So I would recommend working with a professional on that and that hire, just because of the sensitivity of it.
All
Yeah,
right.
I would,
let's go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I would just add to that. One of the things that we've touched on briefly, but we haven't talked about directly is the whole onboarding experience
Mhm.
and how critical that is. I heard something a number of years ago now, just put it out there. How long is it, do you think, before somebody begins to already question whether or not they've made the right decision to stay with the company long term? It's a day and a half. Day and a half, people already forming in their mind,
It's not-
am I having buyer's remorse here? Should this be the company where I'm at? So we really have to be intentional about what our onboarding experience is like. And it's not just the first 24 to 72 hours. It's what happens over the course of the first 3 months. And what are we doing to set up like low-lying fruit that are really easy things for people to begin to feel momentum and success? And are we introducing them to all the different departments within the organization so they can make the connection of how everything plays itself together?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Questions? As you had your hand up for a while, and then we'll get to
The HR part is answering the business side of things, like who's president and take certain plans that can relate to that. So, and certainly, it will be all of them for this research outcome.
So I'm going to repeat the question for the virtual audience. It was a really great one. So other than working with an HR professional, how can small business owners work on their own HR-minded education? And are there any offerings from our panelists?
So there's some things that you can do on your own. We just did with our Garden State Council firm, we had a volunteer leadership meeting back in April. We had everybody go through strengths-based leadership. It was a book that you can get rather inexpensively, but you take an assessment and it begins to tell you what your leadership style is like. And by knowing that, it puts you in a better position to be successful in interacting with people. But there are some courses. I would say if you check your local SHRM chapters too, they often do leadership training as part of their chapter meetings. That's another area. you can
Michael,
look.
can you go over that acronym?
Sure. So SHRM is the Society for Human Resource Management. It's a national organization, an international organization with over 300,000 members. And they have local chapters throughout the state of Pennsylvania.
You can join the SHRM network by application, but you have to have so many years of experience in HR, and you have to have some sort of background in HR. I'm also a member of Society Human Resources Management. So in terms of your own leadership abilities as a CEO, as a manager, and wanting to connect with your employees, yes, there are opportunities for professional development that I think is very critical that you would continue to get. SHRM is a great resource. I myself, I'm in a doctoral program. I'm studying strategic leadership, and I've always had the opportunity to sit in C-suite and also to lead organizations. And in leading my own, I'm also very intentional about staying on top of what's out there, what are the trends, what's happening in small business, what's happening in big business that is trickling down as a best practice or something that might impact small business. One of the most, and I say one of the most efficient and cost-effective training that I've ever seen is through the LinkedIn program. If you pay for the premium membership, they have all of these courses, and the premium membership is maybe like $36, $37 a month. And I often will recommend this as an option for managers training, customer service training, really getting your staff some high quality, quick training in certain areas. There's tons of courses on there about HR, different areas of HR, whether it be recruitment, compensation, compliance. If you have a payroll processing system, so like EDP or Paychex or Gusto or however you're paying your employees, they may have what's called the 411 or informational arm with information and training and things as well. And to answer your question, yes, I do personally offer coaching to my CEOs and business owners and in our program. And we coach once a week and it's $185 an hour.
Thank you for those answers. And that was a really great question. And thank you for mentioning LinkedIn. There is so many amazing courses for small business owners and just employees on LinkedIn. It's pretty incredible.
Teach yourself anything.
Yeah, you really can. One of the last question in the survey that we're going to ask you all to complete is about it's an open answer, so there's room to mention other topics you'd like to hear about. If there was kind of like a mastermind, small business owners who want to think about their team, right? And if there was an interest in that topic, that might be something that we could put together in the future. So great. Question?
Well, I think you want to start again with Michael and I had talked about in terms of what the role is, identifying a role. What are you having them do? With a service like ours, you know, we are independent contractors. You're not telling us what to do. We're not using your equipment. We are using our own resources and things of that nature. With the W-4, obviously, it's a little bit different. So I would start with what are you having that person, what is the role? What does the task look like? There are some benefits to hiring W-4 employees on your books. I will say, as a recipient of several grants and several state, national grants, some of the things they look at is your payroll and how many employees you have, and if you're contributing to the economics of everything, right? Are you contributing to these taxes and things of that nature? So the more employees you have on the books, the more helpful it is to get access to some of those grants and some of those monies. So there is a benefit in hiring a W-4 employee, and the cost is minimal. I will say, obviously, once you do a complete comp analysis and figure out what your budget is, there's some fees that come along with, you know, the payroll processing system, the employer taxes that you're paying into. But it is worth having because you then make yourself eligible for some other things to open up. And then you feel more like a business.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. Everything that Corinne said, it depends on what you're looking to attain in the first 6 months to a year, and how you think it's going to play itself out. Because there's time and energy to get all that stuff set up with the different taxation groups and whatnot as well.
All righty. So we are at 5 o'clock. So I think that I'm going to guess our panelists are okay to hang out for a few more minutes to network. We are going to close out the virtual room unless there are any final questions, but thank you so much to HR Mom and Insperity. We really, really appreciate your time. Please remember to take that survey. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Thanks for bearing with us with those tech issues. The hybrid model is interesting. I don't know. I don't have my final opinion formalized yet, but I appreciate you bearing with us there. And it sounds like from the feedback in the chat, you really enjoyed the presentation. So that's great to hear. So feel free to log out, but I'll also leave the Zoom open for a few more minutes in case you're interested in hearing a few more questions from our live audience.
I just had my team check because I have a whole lot of information and numbers and stuff in my head. But if you're ever wondering about classification, if you should be a W-4 or a W-9, the IRS has a form called the SSA SS-8 form, which you can actually fill it out and complete it and send it to the IRS, and they will tell you, this is an employee, this is a contractor, based on what you're having them do. How much financial oversight? How critical is this role to your position, to the position? How are you paying them? All these different questions. And so they will always err on the side of W-4. So when I'm sitting down with my clients, I go through that form with them and I say, hey, what are you having them do? And we go through that form and then I say, okay, what does this look like to you? Yeah, oh yeah, Corinne, they gotta be a W-4. So, but if you ever need to get a third party and wondering, you can ask the government.
Teacher of over 20 years before I left the classroom. I learned a lot about that in terms of change in behavior. I wanted to ask, when someone is working virtually, the ability for accountability
Yep.
versus billable hours, is there any online checks and balances out here that would be helpful for the employer to be able to know whether the employee is
It's working.
that much?
Yep.
And not take 15, but don't minutes, but don't bill me 2 hours. or
Yeah.
15 minutes. So that's my question. Is there any app or whatever might be out to help us engage?
Contracting.
So I'm going to
Yep.
repeat the question for the virtual audience. So
Yep.
this is a question about, I mean, I think it would apply to employees as well, but this is specifically for independent contractors and who are working virtually, and how to have some assurances to account for their time accurately.
Yeah, so accountability with an independent contractor is obviously important. You don't want someone billing you a billable hour and they're stealing your time. What we use and what I would recommend is a project tracker, a project planner system. So something like an Asana or something like that, where you can actually type in the task and assign it to that person. And then they are working, they're not signing in because that's a behavior that what an employee would do, but they're actually getting assigned to that task. They're working it. They have to upload some sort of deliverable. You have to see that it has dates and benchmarks and it follows whatever your scope of work in your contract was. So there's a number of different systems that will help do that. Asana, ASANA is one of them. Slack will help to do that. If you can use a simple Google form.
Monday.com,
Say again?
Monday.com.
Monday.com.
Free version.
So these are project trackers where you can assign tasks and then you can assign it to even have how many hours you allocated for it to be done. So if you only allocated 2 hours for research and they build you 7, well, I allocated 2 hours, that's non-billable. So I would definitely use a project tracker. All of our clients get a project plan in Asana, which we track, we assign to a different members of our team. And then the client also has access to it to go in as well and assign and give updates as to where they are.
And what about, do you think about with independent contractors for projects, do you think that there's a preference for billing hourly versus billing based on milestones?
Oh, yeah. So that's a good question. So the billing hourly based off of milestones or based on deliverables. I see the deliverables piece and the milestones a lot with like government and city contracts and things like that, just because of how they pay. But depending on how the work is done and how it's done over time, the hourly may be more conducive for a small business owner because they're paying for those hours in real time. So I would recommend when you sit down with the professional to figure out what works best for you, right? If it is monthly, if it is weekly, is it billed, on demand? Because all that needs to go into the scope of work, into the contract anyway.
Any final questions?
There was
That
a
was a good
question
one.
in the
Oh,
back.
yeah, go ahead.
make it easy, and get sorting through all those resumes, like increase the hiring process so much, like, I know there is a shortage of people applying, but then there's certain jobs out there that, like, you put a job out there, then 300 people applying for it.
Yep.
How this makes that so easy?
So to repeat the question for the online audience, this is about when you post a job and you receive hundreds of applicants, what are some strategies to reduce time spent reading resumes?
Well, one of the tools in some, I know in Career Builder, you could put questions in there that they have to answer, which would then be able to decipher whether or not they have some of the attributes that you're looking for. So I would consider what are the things that when you're going to go through the resume first, you'd like to answer and see if that would help decide which ones you're going to look at first.
Yeah. The resume won't last.
So
Yeah.
to repeat that, in case that wasn't picked up by the microphone, you can, when you're setting, you can set required questions. And if someone doesn't answer in the way that you've selected, that that can be a choice to not see those resumes.
And I will add to that, use the tool in the process best. So in our case, HR Mom, on previous slide, I showed all the different tools that we might use. They all have different features. So some have the deal breaker questions, some have assessments, some have the ability to do automated interviews or phone screenings or answer 30-second, upload a 30-second video by answering the question. Not LinkedIn, Indeed used to have assessments and they used to have the pre-screening. So use all of these tools for you because those individuals that are going through that, they're the ones that are interested in the role, right? Ask the right questions, identify the interview process. You know, are we going to do a phone screening first? Are we going to do a Zoom? Are we going to do face-to-face? Are we going to do group interviews? We've done a lot of group interviews for entry-level roles. You know, we're looking for, 10 dishwashers. Okay, well, we're going to be here on Saturday from 9 to 2. Or everybody's interviewing at the same time. And so all of those type of things. So use the process to build in to save you some time, and then use the tools appropriately. And then believe it or not, folks will weed themselves out. Always.
I would.
Not show up. Yep. So that is very frustrating. Again, you have to know the tool. So I'll give you a little bit of insight. Indeed is what we call a blind applicant system, meaning that individuals upload their resume to Indeed. Indeed scans your job post and their resume and automatically puts them in your pool. So that means that individual may have never even applied to your role. So when you're calling them, they may not even know what you're talking about because they may have been in 20 other pools that day.
Can you turn that off?
No.
That-
No,
Oh.
that is how Indeed works, which is why you get there and you're like, oh, I had 50 people today. And maybe 2 of them actually applied. Now, with a system like ZipRecruiter, that is an applicant-driven system. People actually have to go in and upload and apply. So they 9 times out of 10 have read your job description and they're interested. So you're getting a different caliber of person, which is why Indeed can be hit or miss. I do like to use Indeed just because it's another way to diversify, but that can't be your only tool because you're going to get a lot of blind applicants and you're going to get a lot of people that just show up or not show up because they had no idea.
And I would say to build on that, when you get to the point that you're going to have the interview, whether it's a virtual or an in-person, and Dell has done this, where they kind of give a list of competencies that they want people to become prepared to give behaviorally based examples to support. Doesn't mean you're going to ask all those questions, but you're planting the seed that you're taking this process seriously and you want them to show up with their A game. And the people who take advantage of it, it's to me, in interviewing it's like an artist with a blank broadcloth. You want to be able to paint a picture based on what they're telling you, what it's going to look like for them with their experience and how that's going to transcend to you. But if they don't show up prepared for that, or if they opt out, they're actually doing you a favor, because they're saving you having to learn that after you hire them, and then they opt out after a couple weeks or months.
And to Michael's point, we're seeing a lot of skill demonstration type interviews, especially in the small business world. One of the first positions that this business owner hires for is an admin support, someone to answer the email, someone to respond to customers. You want to know if this person has communication skills. Can they write? What's their grammar like? So they will be given a scenario base where they have to send out an email to a potential vendor that you're coordinating a program or something like that, so that you can see a little bit about how they communicate. And that might be in round 2 of the interviews, or that might be in the weeding out process in the beginning, so that you are able to sort of streamline your time to determine if this candidate is worth the time and interested.
All right, everybody, we are 15 minutes over. So we are going to wrap up for this evening. If there are future topics that are HR related or other, please note them on the survey. Thank you all for joining us and have a great night.
Thank you.